I'd rather be with you. Yeah.
We are live. Welcome to Good Vibe Radio. I'm very happy today to welcome Domm from Fast, and we'll discover his company together. As you know, Good Vibe Radio is made for people to keep the vibes up because we need it during this very special time. And I think that better than no one is better than entrepreneurs to provide this kind of good vibes. So that's why we started Good Vibes. So you can ask all of your questions to Domm in the chat, and we'll be happy to take all of your questions. How are you, Domm?
I'm fantastic. Thanks so much for having me today. It's a delight to be here from the other side of the world, talking to you.
Cool. So where are you based? You are an Australian, but you are based in San Francisco, right?
Correct. Yes, I do have that funny accent, and I'm from Sydney. I'm from Bondi Beach originally, and I've spent the last 10 years in Queensland in northern Australia, and now I live in San Francisco.
I won't make fun of your accent because mine is very strong as well. So
Sure.
Tell me, how is it going right now in SF with the confinement?
Yeah, look, it's a funny time to be alive in general, I think. I think the most, unique thing about, COVID is that it is affecting the whole world at the exact same time. So we're all sort of going through this really unique moment in life. It is tough. There's San Francisco, this area, whilst it's not mandated as heavily as other countries, the confinement, the sort of whole Bay Area, so from San Francisco all the way down to down South Bay, is taking this like very seriously, and everyone has been in confinement for a long time. This area was the first part of the US to actually go into self-isolation, and whilst it's hard from a sort of social aspect, I think everyone's really well. We've had very low numbers of infections in this area because we've taken it seriously. So, it's just a difficult life, but I think, everyone's trying to be in good spirits and sort of move on with life and try and do the best we can.
Yeah, I felt the same from far, just following on Twitter that the Silicon Valley was really taking it seriously and going to quarantine early. Tell me a little bit.
Sure. So we're building the one-click checkout for the entire internet with no passwords.
All right.
I got time to spare.
Wow. Yeah, you're good. Okay, I get it. So you really embody your name. Well done. So how did it all started?
Yeah, so I'm married with 2 little kids, and my youngest son was in hospital for a few weeks, and we had my wife's grandmother staying with us at the time, and she was helping us out, obviously look after the kids, and she was ordering groceries one night at the kitchen table, and I was on her laptop, and I watched her. She forgot a password and couldn't buy groceries. She just literally couldn't buy food. Preposterous that in today's age, this little old lady sitting at the kitchen table with her purse out just wasn't allowed to spend money online because of some arbitrary string of text. And I realized, we granted how hard and slow, one, for a big portion of the population who actually just don't find it sort of intuitive. And 2, I think, if you look at abandonment rates online for e-commerce, they sit in sort of 80 to 85% on average. Like I'm sure we've all not bought things because we're like stuff at the form's too long. We take for granted that there's people are voting with their feet and just leaving, and just because the friction of online e-commerce is too hard. So I set out to change that. I built a one-click login product, and we sort of pushed that live. We went on Product Hunt. It was the #1 most voted product on Product Hunt,
and that's a year ago, right?
Okay. That's right.
Okay. So you put
sorry, no, after you.
Yeah, sorry. You put it on Product Hunt, and then?
Yes. Yeah, and so I actually originally put a prototype on Product Hunt. It was originally the #2 most voted product on Product Hunt. Realized that there was something there. I had tens of thousands of people using it within a couple of days, and even just as a prototype. Set out to build it. Release that product as a sort of in GA status as Fast. So we launched as Fast in March 2019. that product's now live on hundreds of sites around the internet, and we process large amounts of one-click logins all around the internet each month. Integration is actually a supermarket chain in Australia, so we've come full circle, and Granny is happy she can now buy groceries easily online. But the biggest thing we realized was that, especially in the e-commerce space, which was our sort of target, was that the friction on online checkout or online shopping goes far beyond just passwords. The friction is really the whole experience, and we shouldn't have to re-profile or a login or a token or anything anytime we want to check out. And if there's a new brand that comes along that wants to sell us, new clothes or new food or anything else, we shouldn't have to go and give them all of our information again. It's just it doesn't make sense to be doing that.
Understand. I totally understand the fact that we are no longer tolerant to wait.
Yes.
Now the big question that pop up in my mind is how can you overcome this technical problem?
Yeah, so I actually think there's an ironic piece to this where if you visit almost any site on the internet today, in the source code, they actually typically know who you are. They've got your name, they've got your email address, they're tracking cookies. Like they're watching us as we traverse around the internet, right? So the marketers are well aware of kind of who is hitting their site in a lot of circumstances. Yet when it comes to logging in or registering or checking out, suddenly they've got no idea who we are. And so there's actually a lot of this cross-site engagement, but it's built to service business. It's not built to service consumers or people. And so what we do is we sit as a very consumer fronting piece of technology that makes it really easy for you to share your information or make a payment or log in or register on any service you'd like to, because we are a third party. So anytime you want to share that information, you can do so at the click of a button. But if you don't want to share that information, then we don't share it. And so we completely flip the way the technology is currently run today, where they share it in the background, but not when you want to. And we share it only when you want to, and not in the background. And so, we're a button that websites integrate. So they can integrate our fast login button. They can integrate our fast checkout button. And anytime you click that, it's a one-click login to the site or a one-click checkout to the site.
How did you manage to get the fast name on Twitter?
Yeah, like most things in life, sheer grit, determination, courage. Most things are just a hurdle to overcome. And I find that if you reach the right people at the right time, the best thing I've done is surround myself with a tremendous network here and all around the world. And now in Paris. If you manage to, twist the right arms, you can get almost anything done in life.
Yeah, I can feel your energy. You are like really focused on every video that I've seen of you, and very convincing, very fully dedicated to what you say. And it's cool. I mean, this is storytelling. I used to think it was made for. I mean, it was only American people who were as good as in storytelling, but actually Australian, you're showing me that you can be amazing and pretty good at it as well. It's clearly something that has been helping you, right, to convince people, because all along the way you've been convincing with this proof of concept first investors, right? You've raised with Index Venture.
Correct. Yes. Yeah. Look, I think story. It's kind of well versed now, but it's true is that storytelling and just selling skills in general are like the kind of some of the most important skills that you can have in business, especially in the sort of early stages of a startup. You're selling everyone constantly. I might have 14 meetings a day, and it is just me selling constantly. And it may be people who are looking for a job. Like we sell people applying to work with us like harder than they're selling themselves to come work for us. The same thing is true of partners and then clients and suppliers. I'm a ferocious negotiator when it comes to our suppliers, and so I'm selling them on the long-term benefits of doing business with us, and obviously investors and everyone else. So I think it's you do obviously need to believe in what you're doing, but you also need to be good at selling that, because even if just believing it isn't necessarily.
And I was wondering, how do you keep your team motivated right now during these times to focus on building the product when the whole world seems to be collapsing?
Yeah, so I often joke that we're so busy at the moment that I don't think they realize they're working from home yet. And so that really does help. Is we just have so much on, like we're iterating on the product so quickly. We're building a lot of new product to take to market, and scaling our infrastructure at such a pace that there just is a lot on, and that has been really helpful. Like everyone is more active than they've ever been. We do have great tools, so communication is really easy. These days with Tandem and Slack and Zoom and everything else, it's really easy to be connected, and I think that's one of the biggest benefits we have today. And we're a very mission-oriented company. Like what we're doing affects every single internet-connected consumer in the world, right? There's no one who's watching this who hasn't ever, or probably in the last week, had problems with passwords, had to fill in forms that are just annoying. Like everyone has this problem. And the same thing is true for every business, right? Honestly, for Hoppen, I had to go through like 4 different pages to register this morning before this video call. And it was really annoying, right? And like sincerely annoying. And that is the exact thing that we're fixing and eliminating, right? So everyone who's watching this now has gone through this process. So I think it's such a large issue, affects everyone all around the world. There's no part of the world that's not affected, and it's keeping us all really aligned. It's great to have being releasing our product along the way and seeing so many people engaging with us. So
Tell me a little bit about your life. Where you come from? What did you study? What did you build any startup before Fast?
Yeah, so I've been coding for a long time. I've been coding for 18 years. So I'm 32, I think now. So tech has been a big part of my life for a long time, since I was, sort of 14. And so I've always been building things and releasing them. I hadn't really embarked on like a proper startup per se, but been building tech businesses. So building platforms and software and tech for other people for a long time. I did spend some time in the corporate world doing sort of commercial acquisition and corporate BD work for big tech companies. But then 10 years ago, I decided I wanted to sort of go out and work for myself. And so I started building tech agencies and businesses selling tech platforms. And then in 2014, I launched my first venture. So it was an on-demand towing platform called Tow, or tow.com.au in Australia. It was bootstrapped, so we didn't raise venture funding, but we did $50 million in sales in 4 years, grew very quickly, won a lot of big we still ran out of money in the end. Our biggest client owed us a lot of money, and we just never managed to recover the money. So, but it was a really great experience in learning how to grow fast. How to sort of grow a fast-growing company, and build teams and build product and everything else. And so, I took a little bit of time off after that, and then launched Fast in March of 2019.
Would you say that your ambition has been growing all along your path?
Yeah, I always have a thing where I try everything that I do. I try and do bigger the next time, right? So whatever it is, and it's not a sort of not necessarily a financial thing, but just in terms of milestones, right? I just like to always have a bigger impact in my next project, and I think there's something to that, because you sort of learn how to get to certain stages, and then once you have that knowledge or that experience, it's really easy to kind of get there again, and then you've got to learn how to get to the next stage. And so yeah, absolutely.
You found your co-founder on Twitter.
Yes. Yeah.
Can you tell us a little bit about her? How did you convince her? What was she doing previously?
Sure. Yeah. Yeah. We found almost our whole business on Twitter. Most of our clients and partners and staff and investors. I think Twitter's played a big part in this company. But yeah. So my co-founder Alison Bar Allen. I started the company in March. I incorporated it as an American company. I was in Australia at the time. I always knew that I would base the business here, but I wasn't here at the time. So I incorporated in March. I raised an angel round out of Australia in May, and then I caught the next flight to San Francisco. So I arrived here in June, and I just started doing cold outreach to people. I didn't have networks here. I didn't really know anyone. I think I had like 1 or 2 introductions before I landed here, and that was it. And I reached out to people who I thought were interesting, just to have sort of generic conversations and build networks. Alison was the head of global product operations for Uber in their money team, and Uber has a phenomenally large financial services business now. It's a sort of core driver of that company. So she was just a really great sort of domain. She had a lot of domain expertise, very smart, driven lady. And she was an angel investor as well. And whilst we had just raised money, I wasn't interested in raising any more money. I just thought she was a good person to sort of network with. So we met up. I was telling her more about my vision and my goal and what we're building, and she was very excited. She had written a thesis a couple of years earlier about frictionless finance, and so what we were building like really resonated with her. So she offered to invest as an angel in the company. She introduced me to Jan Hammer, who's a partner at Index Ventures, and he's based out of London, actually. And so on Labor Day in September last year, I met Jan in the US's Labor Day. I met Jan for breakfast, and it was as for our sort of first introduction meeting. And Jan on the spot made me an offer to invest and lead our round. And so I went back to Alison and I asked her to join. I asked her if she was in, and she said, "Sure, I already told you I would invest." And I said, "No, are you going to come and company and help build?" And we, managed to convince her. And so she did. She left Uber after 5 years. She was there from 2,000 employees to 26. Worked, in sort of 3 cities with Uber, and obviously. Worked across a large part of their organization and had seen scale and engineered scale. And so she's been a fantastic person to sort of have on board and be driving the company with me.
It's a huge jump to leave Uber and to join. There is a question from Ben. What was the catalyst in making the decision to move to the Bay Area as opposed to trying to build it from Australia?
Yeah, so there's nothing. So there's a couple of things. The first one is there is a lot of capital in the Bay Area, right? And there's a whole ecosystem that is designed to build fast-growing companies, and that is just on its own, that is a de-risker. Building startups are hard. I presume that everyone who's watching this movie can attest to that. It's very difficult. Building businesses is very hard. Startups of all types is very hard. This place has proven itself time and time again to produce more high growth companies than anywhere else in the world. So just on an odds perspective, the odds of a business here succeeding and the ecosystem to help a business here succeed is higher than other areas. So from one end, it's just a pure de-risking strategy, and access to that capital does have significant benefits. That's not to say you can't build a startup elsewhere, and that there is capital available elsewhere and an ecosystem available elsewhere. And I think there's lots of hubs that, and Paris is one of them, that's actually building very strong ecosystems outside of the Bay Area. For us, the actual primary reason that I moved here is that we are building a network scale business, which means that, we do want to be serving every single internet connected consumer in the world, every single business in the world. And we've got a product that we have a very real opportunity of doing that, right? Or doing that on a very, very large scale. And Australia is a country of 25 million people. Whereas we want to get to the scale, and we realistically think we will achieve the scale of reaching billions of people. We just don't have the engineering experience within our country of serving that many people. Australia has some large tech companies, but none of them at that sort of scale. almost all of the companies in the world that have reached that sort of scale are physically based within like 500 meters of me, or within like a few kilometers of me. And so here in San Francisco, so that's the primary reason. Is at we've got great product people, great engineers in Australia and all around the world, and they can build great products. There are just challenges that come with scaling products beyond a certain point, that having that expertise in the team is really important. So I made a decision to come here to build a really strong engineering foundation with the talent that basically exists here and nowhere else in the world. And then we can overlay that with people from other parts of the world. But it was just easier to be based here because, again, this is the most competitive market for engineers. I spend 70% of my time, I would say, pitching to engineers, right? To trying to get in front of engineers and creating videos to get in front of engineers and to tell them about what we're building. And you really have to be physically based here to do that, because the competition is so high, they're in such high demand, that it's very difficult to do that outside of here. So, yeah.
Okay, I totally get your point. I was thinking that you would go there for the network effect, especially for the customers that you're targeting. Can we talk about this? Who are your customers? Like, who do you focus on first?
Yeah, so e-commerce merchants. So, we can power payments, login, the sharing of data for any business, but e-commerce is a great sector for us to focus on initially. It also happens to be a $4 trillion market, so it's a huge market on its own. And being so large, that is a great growth opportunity for us. It also proves to be, difficult in isolating the sort of segments you go after. We have like a multi-channel approach to who we target. But so basically anyone who's, sitting on an e-commerce platform is a great target for us. So if you've got a store, or Shopify or Magento or anything like that, then you're an obvious target for our technology. You can have our fast checkout button and make it easy for someone to purchase whatever it is that you're selling.
All right. We have a question from an entrepreneur that I love, Pierre Camille from Smart BNB. And he's saying, I think we have an idea, but what would be the core product principle for a product like Fast? Did you learn anything not so obvious product-wise? Thanks.
Yeah. So I think that, I would say the magic of Fast is as simple as it sounds. So we sometimes say it's like the world's just checkout, right? And it sounds like marketing sort of spin, but it's a really important value prop. That is exactly what people are expecting from us. When we say it's a one-click checkout and we're called Fast, the value prop that you're expecting as a consumer is a fast checkout, right? And we have Apple Pay, we have PayPal, Google Pay, we have other payment systems. So it's not like the only way to pay anymore is always filling in a form manually, although that is still a large portion of the internet. And so despite those things, if you go and use our products, you can go Fast.co, click sign up, and then go to our swag store and buy a hoodie for $10 delivered anywhere in the world. So you can have one sent to Paris, and you can buy it with one click. And we've had thousands of people all around the world do that. And I have never seen a comment from anyone who, after they've used our product, said, you know what, wasn't that fast? Or you know what, wasn't actually that easy? Or I've got Apple Pay, I don't need this. So we've hit the core value prop of what we were trying to do, like, perfectly. And that's not to say we don't have a lot of room for improvement and a lot of places to go and a lot of products still to build, but that core value prop. And that is the most important thing about product, is to work out exactly whose problem you're solving, exactly what the problem is, and then nail that, right? And really, we don't need much else. There's a lot more to our company, but no one else is coming to us also going, you know what, you also didn't, fix the fact that the material of the clothes that I bought aren't very good or anything like that. Like, that's not our job. Our job is to make the checkout experience absolutely amazing. So from a product perspective, it's having like a very, very strong and funnel vision on what it is that you're solving and who you're solving that problem for. We're a B2B2C, so we integrate with the company, the business puts our button on the site, and then consumers use it. And that all, because the business is paying our bills, almost every company will think of the business as their customer. We very ruthlessly think of the consumer as our customer, even though they're essentially not paying us. But it's a really important point, because Fast isn't designed to make it easier for businesses to accept payments. It's designed to make it easier for consumers to make payments. And it's a really important distinction. And everything that we do is about making life easier for the consumer. And so having that really ingrained, really hard sort of view on your target customer, and then how to execute your product vision for that target customer is really important.
Does the end consumer sees actually Fast? We see the button. I mean, it appears. Okay, so I know I'm going through this thanks to Fast.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, so our button says Fast Checkout. It pulls up the Fast Checkout form or shows you the order confirm screen. Same on every site. Yeah.
So in terms of development right now, where are you? So you've already tested Fast with a lot of businesses.
Yes, yeah. So the Fast Login button is live today. We are releasing our checkout button. So we actually released the first ever public demo of our checkout button. So you can go and we released a swag store, so you can buy Fast swag that we sell it at a discount, so everyone can try it. But so that you can try out the checkout experience. So you can go to fast.co, click sign up, fill in the info, then go to our swag store, and you can use our one-click checkout. You can buy yourself a sticker for $2, some socks, a t-shirt, a hoodie, and you can experience that. We've got a couple of other features to roll out very shortly for consumers that we're going to release and test and share to people around the world. And then we'll be letting the first external merchants go live with it soon as well, in about 4 weeks. So it's a very exciting time for us.
Mm-hmm. Can we talk a little bit about your team? Who is part of the team, and what's the culture inside?
Yeah, so we are growing very quickly. So when back in November, there was only 2 of us, Alison and myself. There's now 25 of us. So, in the space of about 5 months, we've grown very quickly. I think in the last week, we've put on 3 or 4 people. So we're definitely sort of scaling quickly. Over half of our team are engineers, and so building coding across back end, front end, security, infrastructure, and we just hired our first mobile engineer as well. We've got ops, so HR, director of talent, obviously, Alison, my co-founder, who's the COO. And myself, and we're just starting to roll out our sales organization now as well. So we're onboarding account executives and SDRs.
It's not, I mean, tell me if I'm wrong, but I imagine that right now a team that is recruiting, you are not so many teams recruiting right now, right?
Sorry?
I mean,
I missed that.
Because of the crisis, I feel like recruitment has been fully blocked and frozen everywhere. But it's not your case. I mean, is it something that Silicon Valley is not in the same mood? Do you keep on developing? I'm not talking only about Fast. I'm talking about the ecosystem.
No, so here. Been a lot of layoffs, a lot of furloughs, which so leave without pay. There's been a lot of contraction. Companies going through a lot of pain at the moment. So Silicon Valley is not unaffected by this, by no means. And almost every day there's massive rounds of layoffs across big tech companies. So it is very common. So we are definitely going against the trend. We are right at the start of our journey, so it's quite natural. Growing, obviously, it's just an unusual time to be doing that. It's a really funny time to be hiring right at the same time that there's more talent on the market than ever before. So it does help from that perspective, and we've got access to people who typically wouldn't be on the job market as well that suddenly are, because there's people who are typically in such high demand that you just basically don't have a chance of sort of hiring these people who suddenly are on the job market, and the job market's really not hiring much. And so, it's a really unique time, not just overseas, even here as well.
Cool. And you, on a everyday basis, what do you do? What's your routine to keep your energy up?
Yeah, so I naturally have a fairly high level of energy. My
Yeah.
co-founder sometimes says she's never met anyone with as much energy as
No.
me. But then again, she hasn't spent enough time with my kids because my son has 10 times more energy than me, and he is on another level. But I think probably helps with keeping up energy, but definitely dealing with stress. Like business has a lot of stress; it just takes a toll, and so it definitely wears you down. Exercise is such an important thing. Looking after yourself. I start my day. I get up at 4:30. I train from 5 till 6, and then sort of head into the office after that. So I'm normally in the office by kind of 7 at the latest, and then that's pre-COVID, obviously. So I swap out the office now for sort of more home life, but try and sort of get away, however I can, and give myself a little corner somewhere. But and then from like 7 until 6 p.m., 7 p.m., I'm kind of back to back normally between candidates interviewing, internal meetings, partner talks, suppliers. So I'm just kind of like Zoom back to back, then I turn myself off for the day, unplug myself, and have dinner with the family, put the kids to bed, and then I'm normally back on my laptop or my phone and sort of responding to emails and messages that I didn't get to through the day.
Do you miss anything from Australia?
Yes. So miss the weather. The one thing I don't get a lot of is sunlight here because it's typically year round, quite cool. And so I'm in, jumper and hoodie and jeans almost all the time. And so I miss the sunlight. So I literally have to take like vitamin D tablets because my body is so used to so much more sun than it gets here. So that I really do miss that. Beaches, San Francisco actually has a couple of beaches that are a bit different. But and obviously my wife and kids, especially because they're not spending all day talking to 400 people a day. They're missing, friends and family a lot. My 4-year-old daughter of nearly 5, she's a socialite, and she finds it very hard being away from her friends back home.
We have a question from Elisa. How do you get the engineers trained and ready to work on your code when you grow at a really high pace? Any key points?
Yeah, so always perfecting on this. We're playing around with a couple of different onboarding techniques actually at the moment. So this is kind of TBD how we can improve on this as we scale. One thing that that we're trialing that I think will be really effective is having sort of shadow ghostwriters who can really sort of document our source code as we build without actually impacting on sort of engineering time and talent. Look, there's no perfect system for this, unfortunately, at the moment. We're doing pretty well, but we're not sort of in that hyperscale growth mode where we're onboarding 100 engineers a month yet. So we'll sort of have to see how well we can get to that point. But it's a big area of focus for us.
A tricky question. Evgenij is asking, I just saw on Wikipedia that one-click checkout was patented by Amazon. Was it difficult to overcome this?
No. Jeff Bezos just handed over the patent to us when we asked nicely, so that was fine. So that patent luckily expired a few years ago, or a couple of years ago. So we no longer have to worry about that patent. And
Okay, cool. And what I mean, it seems to have been not easy, but you've made it to create your own network and to really find a good connection, a co-founder, investors in Silicon Valley. What you've learned since you've been here, and when I'm listening to you, I feel like it's obvious you're going to have to onboard maybe one day 100 engineers. I mean, do you feel like this ambition is also given by this environment, or I mean, give us some insight from the Australian coming in Silicon Valley?
Yeah, look, I absolutely do. I think that it's I think you could come here, and many people do, and you could come here and fail easily. It's like any part of the world. You could for a whole range of reasons. You know, it could just be bad market timing. COVID could hit. Like, imagine if you're in a travel business at the moment, it'd just be like horrific. And for no fault of your own, right? There's just lots of different things that can happen. This place does have, you know, there is a magic to this place where it's just got this ecosystem of people, capital, talent, experience, advisors, mentors that just have this ecosystem that is so incredible. And it gives this platform so that you can, if you want, and if you work hard, you can use that platform to grow and to build, you know, large and impactful businesses. And I definitely think that's true here. And like, we've just got access to people who we wouldn't have access to because they're around the corner and we can have coffee with them, but it's hard for them to sort of allocate an hour of time if you're in different time zones and whatever else. So yeah, I definitely think it unlocks, it makes, we've been able to do things here that I couldn't have done in Australia. I absolutely do believe that, or other parts of the world. And I think that it's been an amazing catalyst for us.
And do you think you're going to go back to Australia, or you're not thinking of that right now?
Well, I'm not allowed to leave, and if I did manage to leave, then I'm not sure I'd be allowed back. So you know, the company is now based here, so you know, for the foreseeable future, I'm based here. I'm not really able to leave. We'll obviously go back for holidays and whatnot, and I'm sure one day, you know, my home country will call. I'm also half Dutch, so maybe I'll go to Europe for a while. But yeah, I think, you know, this is our home now, and yeah.
How do you feel like you can fulfill being an entrepreneur, being also like a social contributor? You know, a contributor to the society, and how do you feel like you can fulfill this mission with FAST?
Yeah. So, you know, like I said, the company was born out of watching my wife's granny, like, just not be able to order food online, right? She literally couldn't order groceries that night. It was just crazy. And, you know, it's this time in the world is actually a really interesting point in that there's over 1 billion people currently sheltered in their house, having to buy groceries online. Like, a huge portion of people that have never done this before now having to do this, and the tech's no different. Like, people are just saying it's too difficult. So yeah, I think, you know, what we're doing is really important, and not just for groceries. Obviously, it's sort of symbolic of the wider industry. But yeah, there's a really driving need to what we're doing, and yeah, so it's an important mission.
I get it. So building it. So what you're saying, you know, in short, is that focusing on building this frictionless interaction online is fulfilling a mission, and you're not defocusing on how can I contribute otherwise. It's really this focus.
Yeah, look, absolutely. Like, our primary mission is in making the internet more frictionless, right? In saying that, like, I'm very active in supporting founders, startups all around the world. I'm passionate about. I've always been passionate about using innovation. I used to travel around sort of regional Australia and give talks about innovation and startups too, and mentor and do whatever I can. I probably have dozens of people contact me a day about advice about, like, startups and the ecosystem and themselves and whatever else. And I don't have time to kind of get to everything, but as much as I can, and without sort of, you know, removing my focus on the business. So yeah, like, I'm very active. If you sort of troll through my Twitter at Domm, I'm forever sort of engaging in that ecosystem. And I think that's, you know, a way that I've been really impactful in being sort of more help rather than just the business I'm part of. Yeah. Cool.
Because I'm asking you this question because I feel a lot of entrepreneurs here are feeling the pressure to have to contribute only of the regarding the crisis right now, and that's why what you're saying, focus and stay humble in a way. What you can do, if you can be the best entrepreneurs and just fulfilling your mission, your initial mission. That's already something amazing. Ben is asking a question. Was it tough to convince your wife and kids to move to San Francisco? And how did you approach those conversations?
Yeah, it was difficult so I wanted to move months before, and my family wasn't keen to move months before. When I went in June, I left on my own, and so I was gone for 3 or 4 weeks at a time. Then I'd come home for a week, and so I was flying between Australia and America from June until November. Once we closed our pre-seed round in September, October, then we've had sort of amazing traction along the way. It was easier to convince my family then. So I basically went and sort of de-risked the opportunity for us, and then they came on board for the journey. Yeah.
Cool. After the quarantine and once all the borders are open, Domm, you are welcome to visit us in Europe.
Thank you. I'd love to. Yes. Yeah.
You'll be welcome to Paris as well.
Great. Now, can I be terribly rude? I've just seen that my laptop is about to die, so
No,
I'm
but
just going to run and grab a cable.
we are at the end of this interview. 40 minutes.
Okay.
It's perfect. Thank you, everybody, for being here at 6 p.m. because it was not exactly the same time as usual. It was a pleasure, Domm. Everybody who has loved listening to Domm, you are welcome to do a networking moment, chat roulette. You go on networking, you click and you randomly meet the people that have been listening to Domm, and why not starting making business together or just connecting as you know. Thank you, everybody.
Thanks so much for having me. Pleasure.
See you. Bye-bye.
Yeah, I'd rather be